and welcome to Tax Matters. My name is Pearl Nameka.
And I am Chiamaka Ohaochi.
A few episodes ago, we began to look at unlocking the potentials of taxation for national development. Everyone seems to agree that for government to meet the expectations and the yearnings of the citizenry, funding is paramount. Funding from various sources, the most important of which is taxation.
Taxation is based on legislation. No tax can be imposed without an enabling law, and that presupposes that there are rules and regulations guiding the levying, the collection, and the payment of taxes.
And when the law is broken, either from the side of the tax collector or of the taxpayer, there are sanctions or remedies. Today on Tax Matters, we're going to be looking at the opportunities or the avenues, if you like, for redress for the taxpayer and, who knows, even for the tax collector. As in most circumstances of dispute, the various tax laws in Nigeria and of course all over the world have internal dispute resolution mechanisms.
Of course, from the internal mechanism, the aggrieved party moves on to external dispute resolution mechanism. That is where the Tax Appeal Tribunal comes in, and that is what we are about today on Tax Matters.
Why would a taxpayer or a tax collector decide to approach the court? What are dispute triggers? As we hear presently from our guide, who spoke at a workshop on when should litigation become an option for tax dispute resolution.
The first one is uncertainty of provisions in the tax laws. Another one is the contradictory action by tax authorities. Another dispute trigger is the arbitrary exercise of statutory powers by the tax authorities. We also have post-audit disagreements. A lot of issues can arise in the course of a tax audit that could result in a dispute between the taxpayer and the tax authorities. Sometimes, for instance, taxpayers are not able to get hold of their withholding tax credit notes, but they have ample evidence that tax was withheld on payments that was made to them. But the FRS says, well, as long as you cannot provide evidence of your withholding tax, then we're not going to allow that. So all sorts of disputes arise in the course of tax audits, and sometimes this could end up in the courts. We also have misapplication or misinterpretation of tax laws. This list is not exhaustive, but these are the obvious ones.
As was said earlier, the journey of dispute resolution begins internally.
We put litigation at the bottom, although we're talking about litigation this morning. And don't forget, the issue is when should litigation become the preferred tax dispute resolution mechanism to adopt. Before we get to litigation, there are other layers of tax dispute resolution mechanisms that we can adopt. First of course, is the letter of objection. When you receive a demand notice from the FRS, first of all, let's back up. As companies, you're supposed to assess yourselves to tax. So tax assessment is by self-assessment. So you've assessed yourself to tax and you've filed your returns in a timely manner, you've obeyed all the rules and all of that. And then FRS then goes through your assessment and then decides to come and carry out an audit to ensure that the facts that you have and figures you have presented are in fact what you have made for the year. So, if for instance at the end of the tax audit, the FRS is of the view that you have not disclosed your taxable income fully, or you have granted yourself certain deductions that you're actually in fact not allowed, they can then issue an additional assessment. Or if there are certain facts that are hidden to them, they can then issue a best of judgment assessment against you. If you are a company whose income cannot be determined, you can be assessed on your turnover.
If you do not agree with the assessment levied upon you by the tax authorities, you can object in writing within 30 days.
The writing of a letter of objection can also be done on your behalf by your legal representatives, because the writing of a letter of objection can come up under any circumstance. I've just given one, I've just shared one. That's a plain vanilla step by step. There are times when the issue is not even so much that you have received an additional assessment. The issue may be that you have been treated unfairly by the tax authorities and you need to then write to them. So what we're saying is, it's not every time that a dispute arises that you should necessarily quickly run to court. Assess what is at stake, assess the gravity of the injustice that has been done against the company, and first level of intervention that we recommend is to engage the tax authorities in writing. Then we also have negotiation. So negotiation can also take place maybe in the course of a tax audit, or after a tax audit, or even after you have initiated a matter at the Tax Appeals Tribunal, or you have a matter pending in court. So negotiation can span across from the moment that you're being audited by the FRS and the report of the audit you don't agree, or you agree, but then again you want to negotiate with them and give certain reasons why they should give you concessions in relation to certain issues. Then we have the internal administrative procedure. Internal administrative procedure occurs when the law provides a particular dispute resolution mechanism. So for instance, in relation to transfer pricing, the transfer pricing regulations provide that where there's a dispute arising from transfer pricing, the matter should be addressed by a decision review panel. So that is an administrative procedure. So the FRS has discretion to set up a decision review panel that looks at the facts of the case and tries to reach an amicable decision. Now, if that fails, then the taxpayer can decide to go to court. You also have the mutual administrative procedure. Recently, Nigeria, finally, we published our regulations for the mutual administrative procedure. Mutual administrative procedure provisions have always existed in our tax treaties, because that is the dispute resolution mechanism for disputes that originate from application of tax treaties. So if, as a foreign company doing business in Nigeria, you feel that you have been treated unfairly by the Nigerian tax authorities, you can initiate a mutual administrative procedure. A mutual administrative procedure is between the tax authorities of your country and the host country. So in this sense, Nigeria will be the host country, and the procedure is actually between the tax authorities of both countries, referred to as competent authorities. So as part of our participation in the inclusive framework, we signed the multilateral instrument on competent authority agreements. We signed that, and so any other country that has signed that agreement and has a treaty with Nigeria, taxpayers now have the option of initiating a mutual administrative procedure.
As you can see, there are internal mechanisms or avenues available to the taxpayer to complain, to object, to seek redress, and to seek restitution. But when all these fail, both sides have recourse to litigation.
When we talk litigation, where does the taxpayer go? The Tax Appeal Tribunal has come up several times in the course of this episode. And so the question arises, what is the role of the Tax Appeal Tribunal in the whole matrix of settling disputes and securing redress? Tax Matters witnessed the sitting of the Tax Appeal Tribunal Northwest Zone in Kaduna on Tuesday, the 30th of April 2019. Several cases came up for hearing on that day, one of which came to final judgments.
The amount of 33,892,406 naira only was the amount the representative of the first respondent claimed to be outstanding against the appellant and in favor of the first respondent for some jobs executed by the first respondent for the appellant. Counsel to the appellant agreed to the outstanding figure as presented by the first respondent in the tune of 17,482,000 280 naira 32 kobo only before the tribunal as the outstanding liability for the period 2005 to 2010, but rejected the mode of payment as suggested by the first respondent. In view of the above, counsel to the appellant by an oral application in pursuant to Order 11, Rule 2 of the Tax Appeal Tribunal Procedure Rules, requested the tribunal to enter judgment in his client's favor in the sum of 17,482,280 naira 32 kobo only, as admitted by the first respondent, being the liability for the period 2005 to 2010. The tribunal being satisfied that the first respondent has admitted the liability in the sum of 17,482,280 naira 30 kobo only, holds that the first respondent is bound by the admission and here give judgment in favor of the appellant. Therefore, based on the totality of the above enumerated authorities and the adduced facts, this honorable tribunal holds that the respondents are bound to pay the sum of 17,482,280 naira 332 kobo only to the appellant. So we hold.
In a matter of this nature, talking now about litigation, there are several parties: the appellant, the respondent, and of course the arbiter, that is, the tribunal members. Barrister Omar Adamu is the chairman Tax Appeal Tribunal, Northwest Zone in Kaduna.
Now, we know for a fact that your tribunal, along with the other 7 zonal tribunals, happen to be the second set of the tribunal since the inception in 2010. But for your own current set, when did you really roll out? When did you commence business?
Were inaugurated by the Honorable Minister of Finance on the 5th of November. And immediately thereafter, we commenced sitting. The earlier committee left, I think, sometime in 2016 or so. So when we came in, we met about 13 cases. So in the present one we were around, we had another one, making 14. But so far, from the November take-off period to now, we have been able to dispose of, I think, about 5 cases from the 14. As I said, in 13 we inherited, yes, and one came, I think, for Keystone Bank, came in the course of after our inauguration. So, but so far we have disposed of 5 cases.
When you say dispose of, you mean you have come to judgment, you have delivered judgment?
We have delivered judgment or ruling, because yes, some, what I mean by disposing of them is we have terminated them, because in most of them they have agreed to settle out of court, you know, or in some of them there were actual recoveries. Some, some have signed terms of settlement, that this is what we agree, and those terms of settlement were admitted as judgment of the tribunal. So that is the composition. But today makes the 5 number cases that were disposed of. But today was a judgment. It was a judgment involving, or between Kano State Internal Revenue Service and the National Television Authority, where, you know, judgment was delivered in the sum of about 17.8 million.
We know that the Tax Appeal Tribunal is an arbiter. You are impartial. You are neither on the side of government or on the side of the taxpayer. You are there to mediate. Can you give us an idea of how much you have been able to recover?
From the 5 cases that we have, I told you we have settled, we're able to recover about 1. Now, the aggregate volume of the matters is to the tune of about 1.9 billion naira.
Just one zone?
Just one zone. And in this period of 5 months, from November to date, I think it's all about understanding. And if you see from the other two cases of Kaduna and the other two respondents, they are craving for out-of-court settlement. Yeah. Because you saw at the tribunal, because they feel it's better for them to come and amicably settle than to go through the rigors of conventional court system. We're here, how many months? 5. How much have we recovered in terms of quantum regarding the matter? About 1.9. This is one of the reasons, this is one of the spirits for the establishment of the Tax Appeal Tribunal. Quasi legal system, quasi court setup, faster, less cumbersome.
What is your message to the taxpayers out there?
My message to them is to be good citizens of this country, to try and pay their taxes as and when due. And where they feel that the assessment is wrong, they could go, and because the law provides 30 days, they should go up to the issuing authority to lodge a complaint. And after the 30 days, if they still feel that they have been wronged in terms of assessment, they have the right to come. So it is not only the government that has the right to approach the tribunal. Taxpayers too have the right to approach the tribunal.
So there is nothing we can do. I can't believe this. Last year I let it go. This year my tax assessment is even worse. They keep doing this because they know there is no one we can complain to.
But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to the Tax Appeal Tribunal.
Tax Appeal Tribunal?
Yes.
The Tax Appeal Tribunal is established to resolve all tax disputes between taxpayers and the Revenue Authority. So when your tax disputes are not resolved to your satisfaction, the Tax Appeal Tribunal is there to help. You can visit any of our offices nationwide or call us on or email info@tat.gov.ng for support. Tax Appeal Tribunal, building confidence in Nigeria's tax system.
Tax Matters also spoke to a representative of revenue authorities.
We observed the proceedings of the tribunal today, and we found that some of the cases concern tertiary institutions, and we're talking about pay as you earn. And we also noted the fact that you kept on talking about full implementation of the tax table. Exactly what do you mean? Exactly what is going wrong, which necessitated taking those institutions to the tribunal?
We discovered that these institutions that we brought before the tribunal were not deducting correctly pay as you earn as stipulated by the law. They were also not remitting what they ought to remit to the Kaduna State government as pay as you earn of their employees. You know, taxation is law. The law provides the rate of deduction that an employer should deduct from an employee on the tax as pay as you earn. So most of these institutions purportedly claimed that they had negotiated a lower rates with previous governments. That is their own claim. But there is no any document whatsoever to show those so-called deductions, those called concessions that they were making. And we said even if they had conceded, they cannot concede against the requirement of the law. Yeah. And so it becomes a nullity. And so what we are saying is that for us to solve this problem of arrears, of non-compliance, let these institutions comply fully with the tax table, but they have always been not shortcoming. And because of that, we had to take them to tribunal. So today we make progress, and I'm happy that we make progress in Kaduna Poly. At least we've presented our witnesses, we tendered our documents, and by the next adjournment, they will do the cross-examination, and we close our case. And so the case is progressing.
And then, of course, representing the taxpayer who can choose to be represented by counsel, these lawyers.
So when we're talking about litigation, do we take into cognizance the Tax Appeal Tribunal?
Definitely, yeah. In terms of litigation, there are two levels of tax litigation. There's a level that has to do with where there have been an assessment, a decision made by the tax authority, a demand issued by tax authorities. In that instance, the taxpayer first port of call will be the Tax Appeal Tribunal. And then if it's unsuccessful in that case, go to the Federal High Court, to Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court as the last court. But where it has to do with the interpretation of the provision of a tax statute, then in that case, there is no assessment yet. So the Tax Appeal Tribunal doesn't have jurisdiction over that. So the appropriate court will be the Federal High Court if you are challenging the FIRS in relation to the provision of any tax, interpretation of a tax provision in the statute. You approach it, you go to the Federal High Court, and if you are not satisfied, assuming the decision goes against you, to the Court of Appeal and up to the Supreme Court. So the nature of the dispute will determine the court that a taxpayer should take a matter to.
So have you at any point in time represented a client in the at the Tax Appeal Tribunal?
Yes, we continuously have represented clients in the tribunal several times, and at the moment we are still handling several matters for our clients at the Tax Appeal Tribunal in the various divisions across the countries. Some in Lagos, some in Benin, some in Enugu, and then I think we have some in Abuja and like that.
Have you been satisfied with any of the rulings?
There are some cases that were decided in favor of our clients, which we'll be happy with. There are some instances where decisions have gone against our client. Then in that case, we appeal to the Federal High Court and probably take the matter up. And there are some instances because of the various divisions of the Tax Appeal Tribunals, we have some contradictory decisions of the various divisions of the tribunal, and in that case, sometimes what decision of the court you cannot question, you can only appeal against it, or you abide by it as the case may be. But in most cases, I think we have been satisfied with the decision we have got from the Tax Appeal Tribunal.
When we're talking about litigation, do we take into cognizance the Tax Appeal Tribunal?
So the Tax Appeals Tribunal is like the court of first instance when it comes to tax matters. However, the Tax Appeals Tribunal can only address issues on the matter of facts and not on the interpretation of laws. If the matter involves the interpretation of the law, then you need to go to the Federal High Court. But if it is a question of deciding on the basis of facts, then you can take your matter before the Tax Appeals Tribunal.
We do hope that you now have a clear or better understanding of the workings of the Tax Appeal Tribunal. Our advice: embrace it.
So there is nothing we can do. I can't believe this. Last year I let it go. This year my tax assessment is even worse. They keep doing this because they know there is no one we can complain to.
But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to the Tax Appeal Tribunal.
Tax Appeal Tribunal?
Yes.
The Tax Appeal Tribunal is established to resolve all tax disputes between taxpayers and the Revenue Authority. So when your tax disputes are not resolved to your satisfaction, the Tax Appeal Tribunal is there to help. You can visit any of our offices nationwide or call us on or email info@tat.gov.ng for support. Tax Appeal Tribunal, building confidence in Nigeria's tax system.
Thank you for spending time with us on today's episode of Tax Matters. Do join us next week on this same station, same day of the week, same time of the day.
Bye for now.